The Dow enters bear market territory because of the bear, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Some of the first evacuee routes are being cleared and ready to go, and evacuees are getting out of the Ukraine right now, so a little bit of good news, and we'll talk just a bit about that. Congressional members in the White House talk about banning Russian oil in the U.S., so we'll go over just a bit about what's going on with that, and the trucker convoy is taken to the Beltway for a second day. So we'll go over a little bit of what that means. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So the gas conversation has pervaded every aspect of our culture here. I'm looking over because I've got the music that we have going on in the background is coming from a live stream off of YouTube. Video Game Study Lounge, by the way, from Game Chops. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. I know a lot of you guys enjoy the music that I have going back here, and you comment because you recognize some of it from the nostalgia from the video games that you used to play. So go check out the actually subscribe to Game Chops and the watch the live stream. It's really good, and it's a nice lo-fi beat to have going in the background. I do it sometimes in the background at work as well too, so it's a really good beat for that. So go and check that out. But in the chat, because there is still a live chat going on there, one of the people is actually saying gas by me is over $5 a gallon for regular, which F in the chat for Jabib0. Sorry to hear that, but yeah, it's everywhere now. The conversation is going on. We lived in such good decadence where all they had time to do was bitch about Trump. And we'll be talking about him too, by the way. All they had to do was bitch about Trump, and now it's, the actual dollars are hitting the everyday people. I would bet dollars to dimes that Jabib0 is not politically activated to either side. He's just looking around and saying, okay, what do I do? Because it's going to cost me 5 times more to fill up my tank than it did 2 years ago, where I was probably bitching about the president because it was stylish and fashionable to do so. But yeah, it's hitting the pocket, and yet we still have people, and we've got a video to start off with. People like Mayor Pete who just say, oh, we'll solve your problems, just go buy an electric vehicle, you'll be fine. So we'll get into that. We'll get into a lot more news as well here. Let's get the live chat up for you guys. Oops, that's over on the wrong screen. And let's get started. So, before we get started though, guys, make sure to go over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs once we get up and launched. Give, Send, Go is up and ready to go. Still got to go and get the name scrub off of there, but once we get launched, we will carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Freckles, no, not the Freckles and Brit Show, the new upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman, and the Porch Boys. Check out the Porch Boys tonight at their regularly scheduled time. It's going to be a great time. Go hang out with them and have some fun with them as well, but still have some fun with me while we're here on top of everything else. So it's going to be a great time. Go check it out. Bookmark turnsofpagesproductions.com, and once we get launched, it'll be a great place for you to get your news by the common man for the common man. As far as the Give, Send, Go, I have been a little bit cryptic about something that's been happening in my personal life. As of right now, it may still happen, but it will be by my choice, not by somebody else's choice. So there's still some things that are working in the background, but starting in April, I will be focusing a lot more time on what's going on with Give, Send, Go, but I do have to make sure that what's going on in my personal life, and some of you who are in the know, but I've got to make sure that I've got everything squared away. But like I say, at this point now, it's my choice. It's not the other people's choice. So definitely go and check that out. We'll go get that fixed, and we are going to take some time and get that up and running for turnsofpagesproductions.com. All right, Let's look in at your finance for the morning. As mentioned at the top of the show, we are in a bear market officially. The Dow is down to 32,817.38 after taking a big tumble throughout the day yesterday again, dropping all the way from 33,600 down to 32,817.38. So just a little bit under 800 points gone throughout the day yesterday as the U.S. weighs and mulls banning Russian oil. Now, you listen to the leftoids over here. They say, well, the banning of the Russian oil isn't going to be a big deal anyway, so let's just ban the Russian oil. We only get like 4% of the our oil from Russia. Okay. If that's true, which I'm sure that's just a recycled statistic that CNN told you to come out and tell people who are against the cause, but if that's true, why did we go from 167 to 399 in my redacted little town? And in fact, why did we go from, let's see, at the beginning of the invasion, we were at 276. Actually, we were at 286, because it's always 10 cents more in this town than it is in Janesville, but I only fill up in Janesville. Excuse me. Why did we go from 286 in October, before any of the invasion talk started, to 399 now? If that's the case. And I'm not arguing that's not the case. I haven't looked up the statistic. It may absolutely be true. But there are other factors going along with that as well, including the fact that there's going to be more demand for oil as we go. But that's what we see right now. 32,817.38 in on the Dow. Looking at the Bitcoin. 38,964.30 US dollars. That is up 966 US dollars and 30 US cents, or 2.54%. over the past 24 hours, looking in at what your Bitcoin is at. So if you do choose to invest in Bitcoin, and I'm not going to tell you that it's good or bad either way, but if you do choose to invest in Bitcoin, you're going to be starting to see probably some spike back up right now. Of course, I choose not to, but I do invest in other cryptocurrencies. $20 at a time. I'm poor still. But if Bitcoin is your bag, absolutely. Go have a look and see. And definitely go and check that out. Otherwise, it looks like it's on the rise. And remember, Dr. J tells us that the only way to be truly libertarian is to divest from all of your investments and invest everything in Bitcoin. Get away from the US dollars. Note, this is not official financial advice. This is a troll to a former presidential candidate. Always consult with your financial advisor and never invest more than you can afford to invest. So, that's what we see coming off of that. Looking in at the metal prices, a lot of green still. Copper is up, steel is up, aluminum is up on the average. Looking in at the individuals, all of your copper plays and brass plays are in the upswing. Electric motors might still be down. We'll go look at that when we get down to the individual plays. Your steel plays are all up. Aluminum is still mixed, with sheet aluminum and aluminum rims being down, but all the rest of your aluminum plays being up. And yes, as mentioned, with copper, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down, but batteries are up, catalytic converters are up, compressors are down, alternators are down, carbide is up, hard drives are down, motherboards are up, power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC towers are all up. So, go and check out all of those and see. That's what we see coming off of that. Let's see what IBD has to say. Free access, but we won't let you read our article. Refresh. Vomred, comrade. Thank you, JFGDU. Oh, I guess we won't be reading from IBD. Because now it's get access to all news articles, whereas it was open and wide open for us before. Fuck you guys. And I don't think we'll be able to archive this up in time either. So, let's just move on and go from CNN. Dow tumbles as West considers cutting off Russian oil. I guess this will be a really, really fast finance section because this is a live blog. Stocks fall again as Ukraine worries weigh investors. U.S. stocks ended Monday lower as investors continue to monitor the military conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It was the worst day of the year for the Dow and the S&P 500. The Nasdaq is now officially in a bear market as tech stocks were crushed Energy stocks and utilities were among the few winners, following a big spike in crude oil and gas prices. Several defense stocks hit new all-time highs as well. Oh wait, that means people had to die. F. Bed Bath & Beyond surged after Ryan Cohen, the Chewy co-founder who is trying to turn around GameStop, disclosed he purchased a big mistake. The Dow closed down 2.4%, or about 797 points. The S&P 500 fell 3%. The Nasdaq plunged 3.6%. Travel stocks get crushed as oil prices soar. Oh, yeah, that's going to be a hard one too. It's a crude awakening. Oh, it's a pun. I love it. It's a crude awakening for travel stocks. Shares of airlines, hotels, cruise lines, and other leisure companies plunged Monday following another spike in oil prices. The U.S. Global Jets ETFs, which includes Delta, United, Southwest, and most of the other major airline stocks, plunged 11%. Cruise lines Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian plummeted between 9 and 12%. Several other travel stocks, including hotel chains Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, rental car company Avis, online travel site Expedia and Booking, and home sharing king Airbnb, were also all down sharply as well. Hold on. Excuse me. I couldn't get the Instagram silence in time, but thankfully on the YouTube side, we got that silence before I blew your ears out with that one. We're all down sharply as well. If it's any consolation, the huge slides are due to good old-fashioned inflation concerns and not worries about the pinko pox pandemic or any new travel restrictions. No fucking shit. That's part of the reason, like they said in the chat, we have the Why convoy. Why bother convoy? Because there are no more commie coup restrictions on anything. Now the way, and I think I saw this in the KTZed Redemption chat last night, but I think the big concern right now is whether or not they're trying to keep us in our homes by surging the gas prices. I don't think that's actually the case. I think they do want us out there and participating in the in everything, because when we're locked in our homes, we tend to take it out on the party in charge of the government. And the party in charge of the government right now is weak as it is. So I think they want us out there, but you know, that's one of the things. It's not just the fact that, I mean, Delta is going to have to raise their ticket prices, but once you get out there, you've had to drive to the airport from wherever you are, which for me is a 2-hour drive. Or if I really wanted to spend all the money that I have on my savings just in the flight, a half an hour drive to an hour drive to go to the one in Dane County. But for the most part, yeah, it's 2 hours drive down to Chicago to Midway, because that's what I usually fly out of, because that's the one that services Southwest. So to go from Midway, or go to Midway, that's 2 hours, gas both ways. And then once I get there, I got to have a rental car or something to get me around. Uber prices are going to be going up because the gas prices going up. So I got to be able to get myself around. It's the same thing with the cruise line. You get down there, you got to be able to get to the port after taking the flight that's extended, after driving to the airport. You see where these things are going to add up, and yeah, they're going to keep people in. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab another one here. Stocks tumble near the close. With a half hour left on the trading day, the Dow was down nearly 700 points near the lows of the day. The Nasdaq was down 3%, and the broader S&P fell 2.7%. And the ruble plunges to a new record low against the dollar. The Russian ruble has plunged even further against the dollar, hitting record lows. As talks grow for possible sanctions against Russian energy, the US dollar Russian ruble is currently trading at around 155, meaning a dollar is worth 155 rubles. Before the conflict with Ukraine began, it was trading between 70 and 80 rubles on the dollar. On Monday's low, the Russian ruble lost 90% of its value against the US dollar since the beginning of the year. The ruble has plunged as the West brings tough economic sanctions and the Russian government introduced capital controls to try to stop the flow of money out of Russia. So that's what we see coming out of that. So there's your finance for the morning. And it all came from CNN, so I mean, it's all completely objective. Let's get into the main news of the day and let's get started. And I think Random Randy actually did predict what it is we're going to talk about first here. So Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, has a solution for everything for you. Are you ready to hear what it is? Mayor Pete's got the solution. on how to solve all of your oil worries. You'll never have to worry about oil again, not for heating, not for anything else, because he's got the solution. Let's listen.
Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings for the American people as well. Last month, we announced a $5 billion investment to build out a nationwide electric vehicle charging network so that people from rural to suburban to urban communities can all benefit from the gas savings of driving an EV. Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings.
So there you go. The solution. There's a solution to all your problems. Just go out and buy an EV. Just go out and drop everything. Go out and buy an electric vehicle. There it is. Problem solved, right? And this, I mean, the comments on this are full of propaganda too. So much misinformation in these comments. Your electric bill will only go up $30 a month as opposed to $250 for gas. EVs use 4 to 5% times less energy, which is why they're cleaner. Excuse me. Wow. Which is why they're cleaner. Gas cars are inefficient. Batteries last 500,000 to 1,000,000 miles. It's not a phone. Well, first and foremost, you actually don't know that because I'm still waiting to see how the battery technology goes once it's exposed to Wisconsin weather year over year. I don't think they'll get to 500,000 to 1,000,000 miles up here. Now, across the American Southwest, that's probably a possibility. You have consistent temperature all the time. I mean, the heat might play a little bit of hell on it too, but I mean, you have consistent temperature all the time. Same thing if you go down into the American Southeast. Georgia, Florida, you still get cold. You still get a winter when you're in Georgia, apparently, allegedly. Even though the last time I was down there in a winter month, it was 65 degrees the entire week. But even still, I mean, you're not taking the wild temperature swings off of this. That's not going to take... I could see maybe 150 to 200,000 miles off the battery. I'm going to be completely honest about this, but that I actually don't know enough about once it's exposed to Wisconsin cold. And JRSR on the other side says the same party that tells us people are not able to obtain a simple photo ID expects us all to buy $70,000 electric vehicles. Well, no, they want the people that can afford them to be bound to public transit. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have $40,000 to go out and buy an electric vehicle. And by the way, there's a lot of commentary in the comments as well that's talking about, well, a nice used electric vehicle will only cost you about $10,000. Okay. You're probably right on today's market. You're probably correct off of that. But let me ask you this. What do you think is going to happen to the price of those used electric vehicles when everybody in America, because they all took Mayor Pete's advice, all went out and tried to compete for those same used vehicles, all at the same time? What do you think is going to happen at that point? That price is going to be, it's going to shoot right up to about the same price as the new ones. And I'm sure the new ones will probably go back up, supply and demand. These people have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm almost paid off on my truck already, even though I've only had it for, what is it? Is this the third year? No, second year. I'm going into the third year that I've owned it, so I'm very close to getting that paid off already. I did some very, very intelligent overpays at the top, and that's going to affect how my interest rate goes. It's not going to go out for the full 6 years, I can tell you that. I can absolutely tell you that. At this point, because of the amount that I paid ahead at the top, I think I would doubt it. It would go out a full 5 years on the loan. But we'll see what happens with that. That's more in my personal life. Less about what we're seeing here. But there you go. Mayor Pete. We'll solve all your problems. Go $40,000 more into debt and go buy an electric vehicle. All right. Let's talk about the Ukraine. First stage of evacuations along safe corridors in Ukraine begins. From Carolyn Vakil. The first stage of evacuations along safe corridors in Ukraine began on Tuesday following 3 rounds of talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials. Ukraine's foreign ministry announced that both sides have agreed to a safe corridor between the eastern city of Sumy to Poltava, which sits closer to Ukraine's center. The foreign ministry said the safe corridor would run between 10 a.m. local time and 9 p.m. and allow both civilians and foreign students to evacuate. The foreign ministry also posted a video of a bus with a red cross on it and civilians evacuating. Later that morning, it said the ceasefire had been violated. Ceasefire violated. Russian forces are now shelling the humanitarian corridor from Zaporizhzhia to Mariupol. 8 trucks and 30 buses ready to deliver humanitarian aid to Mariupol and evacuate civilians to Zaporizhzhia. Pressure on Russia must step up to make it uphold its commitments, the ministry tweeted. Officials also alleged that 4 diplomatic missions had also been targeted by Russian forces. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine strongly condemns the shelling of the premises of foreign diplomatic missions in Ukraine by the armed forces of the Russian Federation, the Foreign Ministry said in a Facebook post. The Russian military's missile and bombings damaged the buildings in Mariupol, where the Greek Consulate General and the office of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission in Ukraine were located. Honored consulates of Slovenia, Azerbaijan, and Albania and Kharkiv were also destroyed. It continued. Russia's armed attacks on the premises of the diplomatic missions represent gross violation of international humanitarian law, the Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic and Consular Relations. The development comes amid a backdrop of over 2 million people who have fled the Ukraine in less than 2 weeks since Russia began its invasion, according to the UN Refugee Agency. The invasion has been widely condemned by the international community, and governments have imposed sanctions to isolate Russia, while companies have nixed business with the country. So, yeah, as of this point, they're trying to get people out of there. It looks like they might have a safety and a safe place, but at any point, and we've already seen it. And we talked yesterday, and I talked with KTZed about this too, where I don't necessarily know who's being the aggressor when the ceasefires are violated. I know American media like The Hill wants you to believe that it's Russia, but honestly, if I was defending my home, especially if there was an invasion in the US, and there's a poll that's out there talking about who would stay and fight and who would leave. I've got on the stack as well, but if there was an invasion and my backyard was into it, I would take whatever fucking cheap shot I could take. I wouldn't care about the ceasefire. There would be a lot of get off my fucking lawn and eat buckshot, slackers. But that's what I see off of that. And when you're coming from Fox News, who is starting to get more comfortable with the neocon line of go back to war, let's look at more wartime propaganda. 10-year-old Ukrainian girl shot and killed by drunk Russian soldiers, family says. From Emma Colton. Drunk Russian soldier shot and killed a 10-year-old Ukrainian girl while shooting aimlessly at a village outside of Kiev, according to the girl's family. Anastasia Stoluk, called Nastya, died on February 28th on a village located about 40 miles from Ukraine's capital. The girl's cousin Anya Stoluk told the Times. So, we haven't seen the body. The girl's name is Anastasia. That's definitely something to look at here. I don't know, man. Again, there just seems to be so much propaganda that tries to get the U.S. brought into this war. And that's the top thing that I want off of this is for the U.S. to not get involved. The top thing that I want, actually, that's the second top thing. The top thing that I want is for it to not be happening. For Putin to look up and say, okay, we are done. We made our point. We go home now. You gave us moose and squirrel. We are done. We will see you next time we want to try to rebuild Soviet Union. And then just everything go back to somewhat normal. That's the number one priority that I want. But second priority would be for the U.S. to not get involved in this. A Ukrainian teenage boy had allegedly fired a gun into the air that day, and Russian soldiers reportedly responded by shooting at houses in the village of Shaibin. The soldiers heard the teen firing the gun, but since they were so drunk, they didn't know where it was from, so they just started shooting everywhere they could see, Vera Dmitrienko, Stolok's mother, told the Times. The soldiers looted the stores, of course, they got a lot of alcohol, and they got drunk and started shooting. Dmitrienko said the soldiers fired in the girl's house as she was there with her uncle and died immediately. The soldiers allegedly prevented Nastaya's mother from visiting the local cemetery, and the girl was buried in the backyard. But did they, though? Did they? Nastaya's uncle was also taken to the hospital, but the family's not heard updates on his condition, according to Dmitrienko. More than 2 million Ukrainians have fled the country since Russia invaded. On February 24th, the UN Children's Fund estimated last week that roughly 500,000 refugees are children. An estimated 38 children have died since the war began, and 71 others have been injured, according to Lyudmila Denisova, Ukrainian Parliament Commissioner for Human Rights, on Monday. God, all these Cyrillic names, I have no idea how to pronounce them. One toddler, because of course it's a toddler, named Kirill Yatsko, was tragically killed last week in the port city of Mariupol when he was hit in the head with shrapnel. Photos and videos showed his mother, inconsolable after doctors were unable to save him, and kept asking, why, as she stood over his body. And of course, this is Fox, so anything that they can do to try to bring us into this conflict, I mean, that's going to be good for them and good for their business model, because, then they don't have to sit back and worry about, whoa, we're Rupert Murdoch's network and they're going to cancel us. If they're covering the war that's going on with this effort. I know there is a massive push to get the U.S. involved in this. But we'll see what happens with that. From the Ukrainian side, CNBC, Ukraine claims it killed another Russian general, other senior officers near Kharkiv. From Dan Mangan. Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Agency said Monday that the country's forces had killed Russian Army Major General Vitaly Gerasimov, and that other senior army officers were also killed or wounded in action near the city of Kharkiv. But see, the main question we have to ask, was he a modern major general? And was he a fine example of a modern major general? Gerasimov was identified by the intelligence agency as the chief of staff and first deputy commander of the 41st Combined Arms Army. He previously participated in the Second Chechen War and the Russian military actions in Syria, according to the agency's post announcing his demise. The agency, which said Gerasimov had been liquidated, claimed that data obtained related to his health shows significant problems with communication in Russia's army and with the evacuation of their defeated units. The post contained embedded audio files purported to be intercepted communications between Russians discussing Gerasimov's death near Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. The online investigative news outlet Bellingcat reported that the phone number of the person receiving the call belongs to a senior officer in the FSB, Russia's national security agency, who was linked to the phone by open source data. So, and I don't read Cyrillic, clearly, by me trying to read some of these names. The tweet says, apparently translated, "This is not the worst part. In the phone call with the FSB officer assigned to the 41st Army reports the death to his boss in Tula. He says they lost all secure communications, thus the phone call using a local SIM card, thus the intercept." I don't know if that's actually what's said here, because Cyrillic. His boss, who makes a long pause when he hears the news of Gerasimov's death before swearing, is Dmitry Shevchenko, a senior FSB officer from Tula. We identified him by searching for his phone, published by Ukrainian military intel in open-source lookup apps. The reported killing comes days after another deputy commander of the 41st Combined, General Andrei Sukhovetsky, was fatally shot by a Ukrainian sniper. Sukhovetsky was also commanding General Army of Russia's 7th Airborne Division. Vladimir Putin last week confirmed Sukhovetsky's death. So, if he's saying it, I'm more apt to believe it. I still have questions about it, but with the other one, this might be cheer up the troops propaganda to keep them out and fighting. Like, hey, we're taking out generals, we're winning. Alright, let's grab one from the Dissociated Press. Crisis deepens. Ukraine accuses Moscow of medieval tactics. From Uras Karmanow. And there is a Ukrainian police officer holding and protecting a child, as it looks like they're trying to evacuate. The humanitarian crisis in Ukraine deepened on Monday as Russian forces intensified their shelling and food. Water, heat, and medicine grew increasingly scarce in what the country condemned as a medieval-style siege by Moscow to batter it into submission. Yeah, if we're actually getting information accurate to what's actually happening, that wouldn't be a bad comparison, actually. I would call that accurate. A third round of talks between the two sides ended with a top Ukrainian official saying there had been a minor, unspecified progress towards establishing safe corridors that would allow civilians to escape the fighting. Russia's chief negotiator said he expects those corridors to start opening on Tuesday. But that remained to be seen given the failure of previous attempts to lead civilians to safety amid the biggest ground war in Europe since World War II. Well, that's not a huge hurdle to clear because I don't think there's been a ground war in Europe since World War II. Well into the second week of the invasion, with Russian troops making significant advances in southern Ukraine, but stalled in some other regions, the top U.S. official said multiple countries were discussing whether to provide the warplanes that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading for. Vladimir Putin's forces continue to pummel cities with rockets, and fierce fighting raged in places. In the face of bombardment, Zelensky said Ukrainian forces were showing unprecedented courage. The problem is that for one soldier of Ukraine, we have 10 Russian soldiers, and for one Ukrainian tank, we have 50 Russian tanks. Zelensky told ABC News in an interview that aired Monday night. He noted the gap in the forces was diminishing, and that even if Russian forces come into all of our cities, they will be met with an insurgency. In one of the most desperate cities, the encircled port of Mariupol, an estimated 200,000 people, nearly half the population of 430,000, were hoping to flee, and Red Cross officials waited to hear when a corridor would be established. The city is short on water, food, and power, and cell phone networks are down. Stores have been looted as residents search for essential goods. Police move through the city, advising people to remain in shelters until they heard official messages broadcast over loudspeakers to evacuate. Hospitals in Mariupol are facing severe shortages of antibiotics and painkillers, and doctors perform some emergency procedures without them. The lack of phone service left anxious citizens approaching strangers to ask if they knew relatives living in other parts of the city and whether they were safe. The capital city, Kiev, soldiers and volunteers have built hundreds of checkpoints to protect the city of nearly 4 million, often using sandbags, stacked tires, and spiked cables. Some barricades look significant, with heavy concrete slabs and sandbags piled more than 2 stories high, while others appeared more haphazard, with hundreds of books used to weigh down stacks of tires. Every house, every street, every checkpoint, we will fight to the death if necessary, said Mayor Vitaly Klitschko. In Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city with 1.4 million people, heavy shelling slammed into apartment buildings. I think it struck the 4th floor under us, Dmitry Sedorenko said from his Kharkiv hospital bed. Immediately, everything started burning and falling apart. When the floor collapsed beneath him, he crawled out through the 3rd story past the bodies of some of his neighbors. Klitschko reported that fierce battles continued in the Kiev region, notably around Busha. Hostomel, Vorzel, and Irpin. In the Irpin area, which has been cut off from electricity, water, and heat for 3 days, witnesses saw at least 3 tanks and said Russian soldiers were seizing houses and cars. A few miles away, in the small town of Perenka, where shelling reduced one area to ashes and shards of glass, rescuers and residents picked through the ruins as chickens pecked around them. So that's what they see off the humanitarian crisis. At The Hague, Netherlands, Ukraine pleaded with the International Court of Justice to order a halt to Russia's invasion, saying Moscow is committed to spreading widespread war crimes. Russia is resorting to tactics reminiscent of a medieval siege warfare, encircling cities, cutting off escape routes, and pounding the civilian population with heavy ordnance, said Jonathan Gimlet, a member of Ukraine's legal team. Russia snubbed the court proceedings, leaving its seats in the Great Hall of Justice empty. Efforts to set up safe passage for civilians over the weekend fell apart amid continued Russian shelling. Before Monday's talks began, Russia announced a new plan, saying civilians would be allowed to leave Kiev, Mariupol, Kharkiv, and Sumy. But many of the evacuation routes headed towards Belarus or Russia, which has served as a launch pad for the invasion. Ukraine instead proposed 8 routes, allowing civilians to travel to western regions of the country where there is no shelling. So that's what we see out of that. There's a lot of stuff out. And again, some of this is going to be propagandistic to try to get us pulled into this war. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that none of this is happening either. Because this is absolutely happening. War is hell. And stuff like this happens. But they're going to pick, the prettiest little girl to go put up on the front screen and say, look at the horrifying things. Look at the horrifying things that Russia's doing. Just like we saw with the article that we read on Contemporary last week and on KTZed Redemption last night, where they're sitting out here saying, well, this poor little 6-year-old girl, she might have lived if it hadn't been for this. Look at this. Of course she might have lived if it hadn't been for that. Now, KTZed goes further than I do and says that might have just been a fake body off of there. I don't think that it was. I think that it was a real girl who was probably injured in the fighting. But they picked the particular girl, the particular person, to be shown front and center on CNN. To jerk and tug at the heartstrings and get the tears flowing. So people come out and say, let's go into this. Let's do this. Let's go right into Russia and impose our will. And make sure that they really leave the Ukraine alone. It's like we have some video of some of the checkpoints and stuff from outside of Kiev. Let's see how long that is. That's about a minute.
Що вчора було з дітьми, кажеш?
Погано було. Дітей 200-х вивозили, мирне населення, маленькі.
That probably hurt. I don't know why they're bleeping the cussing, because most of the people who are in the AP audience have no idea what's being said.
Stay there! All right.
No, okay.
Should we go around the corner? Should we go
Come
around
on,
the corner?
medic!
Should we go around this corner or not?
Alright, so that's what we see off of that. Alright. Let's talk a little bit more about what the U.S. is doing about this, which, again, I don't believe that they should be doing. But hey, what do I know? Ukraine fighter jet deal appears doomed, from Zachary Basu. Efforts to push the Biden admin into supporting the transfer of Russian-made fighter jets to Ukraine appear doomed for both technical and geopolitical reasons. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleaded for the jets on Saturday during a Zoom call with more than 300 members of Congress, saying they were badly needed if NATO wouldn't establish a no-fly zone. These jets would likely be Soviet-era MiG-29s possessed by Poland, which Ukrainian pilots are capable of operating. The U.S. would in turn backfill Poland's fleet with American-made F-16s. Also probably Soviet-era. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead reiterated Monday the U.S. would be in no way opposed to Poland's sovereign decision to transfer its planes, but stressed there are a number of logistical hurdles. Those include how the planes would actually enter Ukraine's heavily contested airspace, as well as how to accelerate the years-long U.S. procurement process for serious weapon systems like the F-16s. The Russians have also been bombing Ukraine's airports, raising the specter of the planes having to be based in Poland or other NATO territory, including the risk of a Russian attack on soil that would have been defended by the alliance. Zelensky's appeal produced immediate bipartisan groundswell of support. Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Menendez sent a letter on Monday calling on the Biden admin to do everything that we can to compensate countries that heed Ukraine's desperate call for fighter jets to defend their homeland. His Republican counterpart, Jim Risch, tweeted, "There's absolutely no reason we can't supply airplanes to Zelensky and the Ukrainians. Our allies are willing and able to provide them. The admin needs to get out of the way." Top Russian military expert Michael Kaufman says it's a mistake to waste time on the MiG debate, arguing that there's other supplies and weapon systems that would be more helpful to Ukraine. Frankly, a lot of the aircraft the Ukraine has put up has gotten shot down, Kaufman said, and pushing MiG-29s, are they really going to fly from air bases that are being readily barraged on a daily and nightly basis? Fair point. There is also the matter of whether Poland itself is willing to risk provoking Russia through the calculus in Warsaw could change if it received rock-solid security guarantees from the U.S. Calling the Wall Street Journal report about the potential MiG F-16 deal fake news on Sunday, the office of the Polish Prime Minister tweeted, "Poland won't send fighter jets to Ukraine, as well as allow to use its airports. We significantly help in many other ways." A government spokesman clarified to a public broadcaster on Monday, "It is a very delicate matter. The Polish authorities have not made any decisions on the transfer of planes to Ukraine." So, and I mean there's some fair points that go along with that too. How do you get them in there? First and foremost, the airspace is heavily contested. There are definitely other systems that would work better for this, and does this provoke Russia to go into Western countries? That's the big one right there, because Russia's already promised that any Western country that interferes will get nuked. I don't know if he's that stupid, but I don't want to find out either. A lot of the same argument that I think people could say about the Trump foreign policy. I don't know if he's that stupid, but I don't want to find out either. So, that's what we see coming off of that. From Newsweek. As U.S. plots the ban of Russian oil, talk of Saudi Arabia deal sparks anger. From Ewan Palmer. The Biden admin has been criticized over reports that the president's advisors are considering a visit to Saudi Arabia to convince the kingdom to pump more oil. The plans, which have not been confirmed, were reported by Axios as oil prices soared by 10% amid U.S. and European threats to ban Russian oil over Moscow's invasion of the Ukraine. Officials told Axios that the discussions of a potential visit to Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil exporter, are still in the early stages and may not happen at all. However, talk of U.S. officials going to Saudi Arabia was widely criticized by people on both sides and the political spectrum, who cited the kingdom's human rights violations during the Yemen war and the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, which a U.S. intelligence report said was approved by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The claim was denied by the Saudi government. Others also cited that President Brandon is calling Saudi Arabia a pariah in 2020 as they condemn plans to visit the kingdom. Brent crude, the global oil benchmark, meanwhile spiked to a 14-year high of $139 a barrel amid supply fears following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Ilhan Omar, a Democratic congresswoman from Minnesota, tweeted, "Our response to Putin's immoral war shouldn't be to strengthen our relationship with Saudis, who are currently causing the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet in Yemen. That, of course, we're not hearing about on the news every day because they're not white. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? Yemenis might not matter to some geopolitically, but their humanity should. This is a wildly immoral act. Some people did something. Ted Cruz added, and the Biden admin is really very slowly discovering that alienating allies and boosting enemies is not a great way to conduct foreign policy. All it took were several generational global catastrophes and war abroad, and the 70s inflation and gas prices at home. Which, again, they're going over. They're talking to Venezuela to see if they can get some of their oil. They're talking to Saudi Arabia. Iran, they're talking to get some of their oil. Anything that they can do to try to keep it from coming here, or coming from here rather, and making the U.S. back into energy independent. These people don't want the U.S. to be energy independent. Because an energy independent nation can't be pushed into globalism. Whether or not to go to Saudi Arabia, I mean, if they get the best price, and they can sleep with themselves at night, that's on them. I'll put the gas in my truck either way. It burns whether it comes from Russia, whether it comes from Saudi Arabia, or whether it comes from right here. The only thing is when it comes from right here, I can usually buy a lot more of it and burn a lot more of it. Put a lot of miles on that truck. If gas is cheap. I know, I did it when gas was cheap. But as far as what we see coming out of this is, especially for some of the things like the article has cited that have been said about the administration in Saudi Arabia. They hate these people for a good reason. They should hate these people. They absolutely should. Because there is humanitarian crisis going on. And it's ironic to me to see that they're now going into places like Venezuela, where people were going and eating zoo animals, allegedly, to try to keep themselves from starving to death as the economy collapsed. I would call that a humanitarian crisis. Saudi Arabia with the Yemeni humanitarian crisis. All to try to save a few bucks and stop buying oil from Russia because of, you guessed it, a humanitarian crisis. None of this makes any sense. But of course it wouldn't. From the Hill. Number 2, Senate Democrat backs bill banning Russian oil imports. From Lexi Lonis. Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin announced Saturday that he'd be backing a bill banning Russian oil imports. The senator said that he would co-sponsor the Ban Russian Energy Imports Act after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleaded in a virtual meeting with Congress Saturday for the U.S. to stop buying Russian oil. The bipartisan bill was previously introduced by Joe Manchin, chairman of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, and Lisa Murkowski, a senior member of that committee. The U.S. cannot continue to purchase millions of barrels of oil while Putin wages an unprovoked and unjustified war on Ukraine, Hong Kong. The Ban Russian Energy Imports Act would declare a national emergency with respect to the Russian aggression and immediately prohibit the import of Russian energy products. The bipartisan bill shows the U.S. Senate's commitment to stand behind the brave Ukrainian people, he added. Along with his request that the U.S. stop importing Russian oil, Zelensky on Saturday asked Congress for more airplanes and the establishment of a no-fly zone over Ukraine amid Russia's invasion. Lawmakers from both parties praised Zelensky after the virtual meeting, which took place more than a week after Russia launched its attack on the Ukraine. So, with that, the bill is out there to ban the import from this, which this would be a purview of Congress. Now, I know a lot of more libertarian types would look at this and say, well, no, they should be able to go and buy from wherever they want to buy from because it should be a free market. That's fair. But this involves a foreign nation. If this involved an internal nation, and we were just trying to decide who wins and who loses internally, that would be a different story. But this does involve foreign diplomacy, foreign bargaining, and bargaining on behalf that governments need to go back and do with each other. That's one of the very few purviews of having a federal government, is the fact that they do the diplomacy off of this. Because, a backroom business deal with a businessman could result in another major world war. As far as doing this, whether or not it's the right thing to do, I don't know. Because all I'm seeing is a massive feed of propaganda everywhere. Whether or not this is the correct thing to do, the correct way to handle this, I can't tell you, because I don't have all the facts. But given what these people are saying, it would be hypocritical for them to continue, and a lot of people have pointed this out. It would be hypocritical for them to continue buying oil from Russia, nationally, to import, if they keep saying the things that they say about Russia. And especially also along with the fact that they just signed the new Iran nuclear deal in partnership with Russia. Again, if they can buy the oil and they can still sleep with themselves at night, I will put it in my vehicle. But I suspect the guilt is getting to a lot of these people. Because they say one thing and they do another. Just like governments have, especially this government has done since the inception of government. Let's grab one from Politico. Biden warms to a Russian oil ban. Congress may not give him a choice. From Andrew Desiderio, Burgess Everett, and Jonathan Lemire. President Joe Biden is racing to avoid a fight with Congress over banning Russian oil imports, as he faces an increasing possibility that his own party will act if he doesn't. The White House's posture this week amounts to an about-face for an admin that just a few days ago feared an import ban would send gas prices skyrocketing. Well, it still will, just so you know, just so you're aware. Until we can get things back on point and get somebody who will allow us to drill baby drill in this country, it's still going to make gas prices skyrocket. But don't worry, we only get 4% of our oil from Russia, says some Twitter egg that has 25 numbers after his name and supports Joe Biden. At the very least, officials were hopeful to enact a ban in lockstep with European allies, but they're adjusting what has become an overwhelming bipartisan interest on Capitol Hill and within corners of the admin in ridding American markets of Russian oil as Vladimir Putin continues his bloody assault on the Ukraine. The admin's newfound interest on an import ban, motivated in part by a desire to avoid protracted debate over bipartisan oil ban legislation that could include even more unwelcome provisions, further tying the admin's hands diplomatically. It also helps to avoid the potential embarrassment of lawmakers appearing tougher on Putin than the president by forcing his hand and sending him a bill to sign. Underscoring the urgency of the moment, Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer said Monday that he had spoken with the Biden admin officials about curbing Russian imports and that they're looking closely at it. He said the admin is working with the European allies, several of whom have already said they oppose a ban, and that he expects the public to hear from the White House relatively soon. I'd love for President to do it on its own. I think he's looking at it very seriously, said Manchin, whose vote is critical to Biden's success in the 50-50 Senate. It needs to happen. Well, let's listen to what Pelosi has to say about this.
There's so much to be said about Ukraine, including just the most recent statement by the readout from the French on the Macron-Putin conversation.
It'd be really nice if that didn't start buffering 2 seconds in. That would be fantastic. Ah, technology. Isn't it wonderful? 9 seconds in, I'm sorry. Speaker Pelosi vowed to unveil legislation to ban Russian oil imports this week, an endorsement that is viewed by many in the West Wing as a sign of its inevitability, according to 2 admin officials. Error! Player timeout! Not authorized to publicly discuss private conversations. Congressional trade negotiators released a bipartisan framework later Monday that would cut off trade relations with Russia and Belarus, a likely ingredient in a wider-ranging Russian sanctions bill. The Senate's number 2 Democrat, Dick Durbin of Illinois, has already endorsed Manchin's bipartisan bill banning Russian oil imports and said that he wants it on the floor as soon as possible. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is risking his life for this cause, Durbin said, and we need to stand by them and accept that it might create some hardship in gas prices. Let them eat cake! This sounds just like fucking Takai. Well, you need to shoulder the responsibility of paying more so we can end the tyrannical government of Russia. Oh my. And I mean, this shit is everywhere too, by the way. There is a former cast member of the Teens React cast and the Adults React cast from, it was a YouTube channel that I liked a few years ago. I don't know if they're even still going. It's been so long since I watched them, but there was a former cast member I follow on Instagram. Her name is Jade. And she was even coming out here telling us how proud she was. And she lives in Los Angeles because that's where Fine Brothers Entertainment was. So this is in Los Angeles, where she shows the pump. She shows herself pumping gas and saying how proud she is to pay $6 a gallon because it means she's putting the screws in the hurt to the to the Russian regime. Are you fucking kidding me? The level of propaganda that's coming up out of some of this stuff, I'm telling you. Oh, hey, let's see if this player will actually play, because then we can listen to the House Plant in Chief himself. Maybe.
Do you think that
Mr. President, what did you mean when you said...
I'm sorry.
Mr. President, are you considering banning Russian oil imports?
Nothing is off the table.
Man, my equipment really doesn't like this player, does it? Holy shit. 9 seconds in. Again, exactly. Democrats fear that the political attacks will only escalate should a ban on Russian oil imports contribute to a further rise in U.S. fuel prices. Yeah, that's probably fair. But the White House did not want to be seen in any way as not fully punishing the Kremlin for its actions in Ukraine, according to its officials. New sanctions on Russia's oil and gas industry, its economic lifeblood, where Putin made his fortune, are also still under consideration. And also, don't forget, you can just go out there, right there, and go buy a $40,000 electric car and all your problems will be solved. Look at that. You never have to worry. What's funny about this, and I mean, we were seeing gas prices like this coming into the Obama admin, and even for some parts to the first year of the Obama admin as well. Coming into 2009, we didn't really start to see the relief until 2010, when Obama himself realized that, well, we can't. This is unsustainable. I'm telling you. We've got to go back out. We got to get some oil in here. We've got to do some stuff from the oil fields we have under here. Otherwise, they'll take me out of office with pitchforks. And again, at the time, I know that there was the push to get people out of bigger, clunkier vehicles. Older vehicles also were a big problem at the time. And get them into new, nice little, at the time, hybrid. We didn't really have electric vehicles yet at the time. But nice, new little hybrid cars, compact cars. Hondas that got 40 to 50 miles per gallon. Well, 38 miles to the gallon for the Hondas. Unless you were hybridized, then you got 40 to 50, which is funny because one of my friends had an 81 Corolla with a carbureted inline 4 that got 52 miles to the gallon plus, if he drove it real nice. But again, this paragraph right here tells it right here. Democrats fear the political attacks will only escalate. There is already talk. And it seems that most everybody in my chat knows, because I'm trying to be objective about this. I'm not going to say that I know. But I have suspicions that a lot of this is, the U.S. government's fault to try to get us into a war. To give us a wartime president, so... wartime presidents usually fare better in elections, with the midterm coming up, and also the election and 2024 coming up as well. Getting us into a war that'll last forever, make us a wartime president, and possibly secure that sweet, sweet, sweet re-election. Nobody wants to change horses in the middle of everything, but... people are going to point out the fact, especially coming up on midterms. We didn't go to war under the Trump presidency, and gas dropped down to the lowest points of some of our lives, adjusted for inflation. And even the lowest points of our lives not adjusted for inflation. But that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from Reuters. U.S. may act alone to ban Russian oil imports, sources say. From Jared Renshaw and Timothy Gardner. The U.S. is willing to move ahead with a ban on Russian oil imports with the participation of allies in Europe. Two people familiar with the matter told Reuters in light of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. President Biden held a video conference call with leaders of France, Germany, and the UK on Monday as his admin continues to seek the support for a ban on Russian oil imports. The White House is also negotiating with the U.S. congressional leaders who are working on fast-tracking legislation that would ban Russian imports, a move that is forcing the administration to work on an expedited timeline, a source told Reuters, speaking on condition of anonymity. A senior U.S. official, also speaking on condition of anonymity, told Reuters that no final decision has been made, but it's likely just the U.S. if it happens. Germany, the biggest buyer of Russia's crude oil, has rejected plans to ban energy imports. Germany is accelerating its plans to expand its use of alternative energy sources, but cannot halt imports of Russian energy overnight. Olaf Scholz said on Monday. Oil prices have soared to their highest level since 2008 due to the delays of the potential return of Iranian crude to global markets, and as the US and European allies consider banning Russian imports. Europe relies on Russia for crude and natural gas, but has become more open to the idea of banning Russian products. The US relies far less on Russian crude and products, but a ban would help drive prices up and pinch US consumers, already seeing increasing prices at the gas pump. And by the way, already having seen increased prices at a gas pump for over a year. Because again, right now they're going to try to tell you and try to sell the idea that this all just happened because of Russia, and we were still chugging along perfectly until the Russian invasion happened. And that's not what actually happened. That's not reality. As much as they're going to try to tell you that's reality, that is not reality. We import such a smaller percentage of oil from Russia than Europeans do. It's a very different circumstance, White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead told reporters. Nancy Pelosi, in a Sunday letter, said that her chamber is exploring legislation to ban the import of Russian oil, and that Congress intends to enact this week's $10 billion in aid for Ukraine in response to Moscow's military invasion of its neighbor. Why? Why are we spending all this money in these other countries? It's constant. But that's what we see off of that. From the Hill. Ukraine President Zelensky is trying to get us in on this one here. Ukraine President calls for an international trade embargo on Russia. From Monique Beals. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday pressed for more international sanctions against Russia, including boycotting Russian oil and halting exports to the country. If the invasion continues and Russia has not abandoned its plan against Ukraine, then new sanctions package is needed for sake of peace, Zelensky said according to Reuters. Boycott imports to Russia. If they do not adhere to civilized rules, then they should not receive goods and services from civilization. Let the war feed them, said the president, who has widely been praised as a wartime hero. Western sanctions, including barring transactions with Russia's central bank, closing airspace to Russian aircraft, and kicking certain banks out of the international SWIFT system, have already begun to isolate Russia. However, Zelensky urged more action from the West, particularly a no-fly zone over Ukraine, and harsher measures against Russia's energy sector. So he's all for this. He wants everybody to just stop buying Russian stuff because, hey, then they'll have the oil to fuel their tanks and stuff going up there, definitely. But again, the propaganda. And we don't know what's actually true and what's not about this. From CNBC, Bill Ackman says Russia's attack on Ukraine means World War III has likely already started. Please do a World War III! Please go to World War III! Please go to World War III! From Chloe Taylor. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman has warned that World War III has likely already started amid Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. In January of 2020, I had nightmares about the potential for a pandemic, but everyone seemed to think I was crazy. I'm having similar nightmares now, Ackman said via Twitter late Saturday. In early 2020, when fewer than 7,000 coronavirus cases had been confirmed in the U.S., Ackman, who is CEO of Pershing Square Capital, called for a 30-day national lockdown and warned that hell is coming in an interview with CNN. Ackman later defended his comments after his fund announced shortly thereafter that it had made more than $2 billion in bets against the market. Yeah, this is the guy you want to listen to. On Saturday, Ackman said that World War III has likely already started, but we have been slow to recognize it. Though he added that there was much more that we can do before we enter a hot war with Russia. Do not enter a hot war with Russia. Stop. Full stop, you warmongering pig. The U.S. could stop the absurdity of buying oil from Russia and funding the war, and Europe could follow suit once demand for gas declines in the spring, Ackman said. Or, again, once we start drilling over here. Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday issued a fresh call for international boycott of Russian oil, with EU officials Tuesday set to discuss proposals for ending the bloc's reliance on Russian fossil fuels. International benchmark Brent crude futures and US WTI futures both soared to 13-year highs on Monday as investors considered the prospect of a Russian oil embargo. Supplying Ukraine with West's best weaponry, intelligence, and drones would allow NATO to assist the Ukraine without putting troops on the ground, Ackman said. The Ukrainians with the right weapons and resources have proven that they have what it takes to win this war. Unless and until Putin goes nuclear, he said, our reason for not doing so appears to be our fear of provoking the Russian president. But he said the West has already provoked the Russian president by giving the Ukrainians the weapons that were enabling them to thwart Russia's advances. A slew of countries all over the world supplied weapons and funding to Ukraine to help the country defend itself against invading Russian forces. U.S. President Biden's admin has asked Congress to approve billions of dollars worth of funding for Ukraine since Russia launched its attack on February 24th. Yeah, it definitely looks like this guy's calling for it too, and do not go to war. I'm telling you. From Insider, Elon Musk asked by Twitter users to deactivate all Teslas in Russia following the country's invasion of Ukraine. From Zara Taib, this is scary as shit. This right here is reason enough for me to start considering never buying a vehicle newer than 2020 again, and in fact possibly even selling the truck that I have and going back to something that was built in the 90s. The parts are readily available. You can get reman and rebuilt stuff all over the place. You could restore that truck to almost brand new in a very, very short amount of time and not have to worry about shit like this. A small but impassioned group of Twitter users are urging Elon Musk to deactivate all Teslas in Russia. The calls come in the wake of the country's continuing attack on Ukraine, which began on February 24th. In a series of tweets to the tech mogul, several users asked Musk to turn off every single Tesla in Russia. One said, please turn off and deactivate all Teslas in Russia. It's absolutely disgusting what Russia's doing, and Putin has to be stopped. Another requested the deactivation as a sort of tech embargo on Russia. Musk, however, is yet to respond to the request. Tesla did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comment made outside of normal working hours. Since Russia conducted a special military operation on Ukraine, Musk has been helping Ukrainians by providing them with internet access. Refugees can also access free charging for both Tesla and non-Tesla vehicles in neighboring countries. This is scary, though, because how fast do you think, especially given the fact now Mayor Pete is telling you that the solution to all your problems is to go out and buy a brand new EV, to go out and spend $40,000 on an electric vehicle, trying to get everybody in the country to move away from their evil fossil fuel power vehicle and go to an EV. Why? Why would they want to do that? And how does that get turned back around now into, oh, well, we also mean go turn off the EVs of all the evil Republicans. This is scary level, because especially the people that are calling for this, I'm guessing, given the propagandized nature of what we've been seeing for the past few weeks, turning off every EV in the US, or I'm sorry, turning off every EV in Russia, that could very easily be translated into, oh, well, if you're banned on Twitter, then you shouldn't have EV access either. So let's just turn that off here. If you're banned on Twitter, if you're banned on Facebook, if you're banned on any of these social media sites, you shouldn't be allowed to speak out in public anywhere. You should be on person. Oh, well, your Tesla. Well, let's just get rid of that. Let's make sure that your Tesla doesn't run. Your electric vehicle doesn't run. Let's turn that off. This right here is my big reason for not buying an electric vehicle. Because there's so much satellite control that goes into it. From Axios, Zelensky wins Ronald Reagan Freedom Award. Why? The Ronald Reagan Presidential Institute, Foundation rather, an institute, will announce Monday that Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky is receiving the Ronald Reagan Freedom Award for his courageous fight against tyranny and his indomitable stance for freedom and democracy. It's still going on. The world applauds Zelensky and all that he stands for: democracy, individual liberty, freedom, and hope. Really? Because as far as I knew, the Ukraine was a socialistic nation, said Fred Ryan, chairman of the foundation and institute of the board of trustees. Former President Reagan bestowed his first Freedom Award on Mikhail Gorbachev at the Reagan Library in 1992, after he tore down that wall. Other winners include Colin Powell, Yitzhak Rabin, King Hussein I, Margaret Thatcher, President H.W. Bush, Nathan Sharansky, and Lech Walesa. Well, I can tell you right now that given a name like that, or giving a list like that, I'd never, ever, 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 for any reason, want to win the Reagan Freedom Award. Ever. Because I don't want to be involved with these warmongering pigs. From the BBC. So this is interesting because of some of the things that we've talked about both on both shows. How I talk about what's actually happening in the Ukraine and how KTZed also talks about it. Ukraine invasion, false claims the war is a hoax, go viral. From Cheyenne Sardarizada and Olga Robinson. Which is weird because they don't usually give an author on BBC articles. Nearly 2 weeks after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a flow of false or misleading information about the war hasn't let up, and now there are some outlandish theories being shared online. Some have begun to claim that the war is a hoax, a media fabrication, or has been exaggerated by the West in terms of its scale. We've examined some of them. False claims about crisis actors. A video of a young woman and a young man having fake blood applied to their faces has racked up millions of views on multiple platforms. It is shared as supposed evidence that the war in Ukraine is a hoax and civilian victims are actually crisis actors, people hired to act out scenes in an attack. But the video is unrelated to the war. It was shot in 2020 on the production set of a Ukrainian TV series, Kontamin. The male actor can be seen in behind-the-scenes images from the set tweeted in December of 2020. Moving corpse. A video of a news reporter in front of multiple body bags has gone viral on several social media networks and has been spread widely by pro-Kremlin accounts. Seconds into the clip, one of the body bags starts moving as a man removes the cover and is attended by a photographer. Social media posts claim the video was shot in Ukraine and proves the war is either a hoax or manufactured by Western propaganda. But the claims are false, as the video clip is from a climate change protest in Vienna in early February, as reported by the Austrian newspaper Österreich, organized by Friday for Future climate activists. The depiction of the body bags aimed to highlight the danger of carbon emissions to human life. The same video was shared by conspiracy groups last month with false claims that it showed a COVID crisis actor. False wooden guns claim. A screenshot of a Fox News broadcast showing two Ukrainian men holding what appear to be wooden guns has gone viral. It's often accompanied by false claims that the war in Ukraine is a hoax, and the fact that they're not real guns is proof of this. The footage actually dates back to mid-February, before the war began. It was taken during a training course provided by far-right Azov Battalion for civilian volunteers in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, willing to defend themselves and their communities in case of a Russian invasion. So the BBC is running out to try to debunk this right away. Look, I don't claim that there is nothing going on over there. I promise you that there is a war going on in Ukraine right now. But I will tell you that I don't believe that it's going on the way that they tell us that it's going on. Especially given and seeing the propaganda that we see. The child on a slab. How terrible it is. The 6-year-old that died. The Ukrainian officer hovering over an 11-year-old girl to make sure that she's safe. It's always girls too, by the way, when it's the children. From all that I see off of this, what I see is an orchestrated attempt by the media to skew some of the images that we see off of this, to make the West want to get into this, to make the West want to come in and punish Russia, because they've been propagandized for the last 5 years that Russia is global enemy number one, and now we need to go back out here and start the war with them because the wars in the Middle East have become so unpopular among so many people. I believe it's going on, but I don't believe it's going on the way it's presented to us. But that's what we see off of that. From the Blaze. A majority of Democrats say they would flee the U.S. during an invasion, but a majority of Republicans say they will remain and fight. From Alex Nitzberg. As Ukrainians valiantly fight to defend their nation against a Russian invasion, a Quinnipiac University national poll of U.S. adults asked people whether they would fight or flee if they face that situation. The poll found that a whopping 68% of Republicans said they would remain and fight. Just 40% of Democrats said they would stick around and fight. Among independents, 57% said they would stay and fight. Just 25% of Republicans and 36% of independents indicated they would leave the U.S., while 52% of Democrats said they would depart, according to the poll conducted March 4th to March 6th. Overall, 55% of the poll said they would remain and fight, while 38% indicated they would depart the country. A strong majority indicated they would back a ban on Russian oil, even if such a move would result in higher gas prices in the U.S. More than half the poll thought that Russian President Vladimir Putin is mentally unbalanced, while just 21% thought that the Russian figure is stable mentally. Again, this coming from people who have been propagandized to for the last 5 years, that Russia put Trump in so Trump would break up NATO and he could just move in and take over Ukraine and all of its territory as soon as somebody else was in office. I'm going to tell you right now, if the U.S. got invaded, and it got to the point where I'm at in Wisconsin, first and foremost, good luck getting past Milwaukee. Godspeed. If you come in through the St. Lawrence Seaway in Lake Michigan, good luck getting past Milwaukee and Chicago. Have fun. But if for some reason they decided to do that and take the U.S. from the inside out, being completely surrounded in the process, because that would be stupid, or even if the government decided they wanted to crack down, I am, because I'm a little bit chubby over here, I don't do enough cardio, I'm under no illusion that if I took rifles and pistols out to defend where I live from either an invading U.S. government or an invading foreign army, that I would survive. I'm under no illusion of that. But I'm going to take at least 1, hopefully 10 with me when I go. I would rather, again, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to run out to another country. And I would rather die from my feet than live on my knees. If they want to come and kill me, come and kill me. Absolutely. But I'm going to make it hard for you at least. I'm going to make it difficult on you. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from CNN. Hey, look, they've got Trump's name in their mouth again. This is an op-ed from Dean Obiadala. Trump must think Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a joke. Editor's note, Dean Obiadala, a former attorney and host of SiriusXM's radio daily program, The Dean Obiadala Show, is a columnist for The Daily Beast. Follow him on Dean Obiadala. The opinions expressed in this commentary are his own. View more opinion articles on CNN. No thank you. Before he entered politics, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was a professional comedian. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, on the other hand, just plays a bad one at GOP gatherings. We saw this on Saturday night during a 2-day event for the top Republican committee donors, with the world watching in horror as Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashes hell on the Ukrainian people. Trump had the chance to share his vision with the GOP elite on how he would handle the situation. Did Trump, who appears to be gearing up for a run again in 2024, lay out a detailed, well-researched, militarily sound plan to counter Putin? Of course not. Instead, he thought this would be a good time to crack a joke. Despite heart-wrenching images of Ukrainians being bombed and fleeing for their lives. According to reporting of the speech by the Washington Post, Trump told the audience of GOP donors that the U.S. would put the Chinese flag on F-22 fighter jets and bomb the shit out of Russia. He quipped, and then we say, China did it. And then they start fighting with each other and we sit back and watch. The Post reports that the audience responded with laughter, which is baffling. This is the type of joke that a second-rate comedian would make in a crappy comedy club in New Jersey on a weeknight. Man. Derangement, derangement, derangement. Not the words of a former president of the U.S., but apparently to Trump, joking about a conflict where people are fighting for their lives against nuclear superpower is a real knee-slapper. Okay, Dean. Well, now that we've got this out of your mouth and the fact that all you can do is talk about the former president, let's sit back and talk about what's actually happening here. What actually did to this, and the fact that Russia invaded and annexed Crimea in 2014 under Obama, and a year into the Biden presidency, they decided that, you know what? Let's just fucking do it again. Does anybody remember the video clip of Obama saying, hey, look, after the election, I'm going to have so much more, what did he say? Latitude? I'll have so much more latitude to make a deal after I win this re-election. All right. And the last one we'll do on Ukraine before we move on and talk about other stuff. From the Hill, please allow ads to support our journalism. Musk calls for expansion of nuclear power in Europe, from Joseph Choi. Tesla CEO Elon Musk called for Europe to increase its nuclear energy production by restarting dormant nuclear plants on Monday as Western governments grapple with how they will potentially replace Russian energy exports in the event of a sweeping embargo on the country's oil. Hopefully, it is now extremely obvious that Europe should restart dormant nuclear power stations and increase power output of existing ones. This is critical to national and international security, Musk tweeted. Anticipating concerns over radiation, Musk asked Twitter users to tell him where they believe it was the worst location for radiation and said that he would travel there and eat locally grown food on TV. I did this in Japan many years ago, shortly after Fukushima. Radiation risk is much, much lower than most people believe, he said. Musk, whose car company, Tesla, is one of the largest electric vehicle manufacturers in the world, called for the U.S. to increase its oil and gas production last week as well, saying it was necessary in the light of extraordinary times. I hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures, the tech magnate wrote on Twitter. Which we do. And yes, more nuclear. Do more nuclear. Well, the nuclear power plant, that might turn out like Chernobyl. Do you want Chernobyl over here? I'm going to troll Seawall with that later on today too, because I know that he can't see when I'm triggering and trolling him. And he will go into a massive explanation that I've heard 3 times already about how much safer nuclear reactors are than they were in the time of Chernobyl. But yes, absolutely. Absolutely crank up the nuclear production. Now again, it's not going to be be-all end-all because uranium is mined with fossil fuels. But it will be a nice little stopgap until we figure out how to actually harness solar in a way that won't make the land fallow if one of the panels crack, or harness the power of the wind more efficiently without using coal to build the giant steel windmills. So that's what we see off of that. And with that, we move on out of the Ukrainian stuff. Let's see what we can get out of this, and then we'll do something that restores my faith in you. No, this is Tuesday. We're going to do Twitter trending. All right, that article's getting saved. And then we will do Twitter trending. I'm sorry. Whoops. All right, let's talk about the trucker convoy. From WTOP News. Trucker convoy took to the Capitol Beltway for second day, future plans unclear. From Will Vitka and Jessica Kronzer. The People's Convoy, a group of truckers who circled the Capitol Beltway twice on Sunday, hit the road again on Monday but didn't cause any major disruptions on the Beltway. The group has been cagey about its plans, although organizers have told various media outlets that they plan to continue their convoy throughout the week. They're protesting the mandates, despite the fact that many restrictions are no longer in place, along with a myriad of other issues under the banner of Let Freedom Roll. That includes ending the national emergency declaration in response to the pandemic first issued by former President Trump on March 13th, 2020, and extended by Biden. Emergency declarations essentially allow the president to direct federal resources to help state and local governments deal with the disasters and other crises. And this, of course, by the way, given the fact that the Capitol Police don't have jurisdiction outside of the Capitol building. Let's keep that in mind. The Metro Police would, and if the Metro Police decided to declare a state of emergency, I believe there are also provisions in place that Congress and the presidency can issue National Guard help to the Metro Police. I believe that's how that works, but I could absolutely be wrong about that. I'm not sure how the relationship between Capitol Police and Metro Police and the federal government actually works. I have an idea, but I don't know if it's accurate or not. Let's see. The truckers are also asking Congress to investigate the government's handling of the pandemic. Ron Johnson and Ted Cruz issued news releases Monday that they plan to meet with the People's Convoy to discuss the harmful effects of the president's vaccine mandates. The meeting is scheduled to take place on Tuesday with media availability afterwards. So, And we can see some of the stuff on the Beltway. And again, they're not being assholes about it. They're showing that they can gather a number of people into the Beltway and shut it down if they want to, but they're not shutting it down. One of the big things for me is, I don't know why this is a problem. Because all the mandates are gone. And again, I don't necessarily know what this is supposed to accomplish other than a small show of force. That, hey, we can do this, but all the mandates are gone. I don't know why they're doing this. But it looks like maybe Ron Johnson and Ted Cruz can find out because they're going to meet with them, so we'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one from the Hill. Actually, we're going to skip that because... No, let's read this. Let's just see what's going on with this. From Chloe Fulmar. Republican Senators Ron Johnson and Ted Cruz will meet with truckers from the People's Convoy protest on Tuesday to discuss harmful effects of President Biden's vaccine mandates, they said on Monday. The convoy, which has staked out the Washington, D.C. area since last week, is calling for an end of the state of emergency that led to overreaching mandates. That I can understand. End the state of emergency. But, I mean, all the mandates are gone. I guess we are still in the state of emergency. I didn't think about that. So, yeah, let's get that ended. Inspired by the trucker convoy that shut down Windsor, Ontario's Ambassador Bridge in Canada, the People's Convoy calls itself a peaceful and unified transcontinental movement. We're law-abiding citizens that are just exercising our rights to this protest, said People's Convoy organizer Brian Brazy. Capitol Police issued an emergency declaration on Sunday to ensure that the U.S. Capitol Police are able to operate and respond as necessary in response to the trucker presence in D.C. The Pentagon extended the National Guard support to the Capitol Police Monday in anticipation of further protests by the People's Convoy. Which is funny. Which is very funny to me. Because they had BLM, Antifa tear DC apart for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and no National Guard came out. But until, once this became a protest that the federal government didn't like, now we have to go call the National Guard back out. It's the same thing in Chicago and Wisconsin, especially in Kenosha. The National Guard wasn't called out until somebody shot back. Minneapolis, they did pull National Guard support a little bit earlier, but still, they waited a long time and let a good goddamn large part of the city burn. Portland, the National Guard only got involved when it was federal buildings. And various other protests across the country. But at this one, before anybody's ever stepped out of a truck, they've already got National Guard presence deployed. So, the DC has repeatedly announced that it's monitoring demonstration activity and warned residents that trucker protests may result in road shutdowns or other inconveniences. So, there again, completely differential treatment, mostly having to do with the political aspirations of the people involved. From the Daily Wire. Exclusive and leaked audio, former NIH director, new Biden science advisor, laughs over threatening unemployment to force vaccines, blames Trump for COVID deaths. From Megan Basham. I've not heard this yet. And I want to see if they've got the actual audio for this. And it doesn't look like they do. So I'm going to say take this one with a grain of salt. Unless I actually hear the audio, which I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. But let's read and see what they have to say. Former head of the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins, appointed as President Biden's new science advisor on February 17th, has constantly maintained that he plays a nonpartisan role in the federal government. Collins told NPR, for example, that he and his former employee, Anthony Fauci, are not political figures and expressed frustration over criticism directed towards them as being driven by a very strong political overtone. Their COVID policy recommendations, he insists, by contrast, have been solely based on scientific data. But a leaked audio recording obtained by the Daily Wire calls Collins' claims of political neutrality into question. During a private October 26th event at the University of Chicago, the physicians wandered far afield of medical opinion, offering legal arguments for federal vaccine mandates and maintaining that the threat of job loss should be used to pressure citizens into getting the shots. He also took aim at former President Trump over COVID deaths that occurred early in the pandemic and admitted to greenlighting controversial research that relied on organs harvested from aborted infants. But there is no audio for this. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hold on to this one as well and see if something updates for this, but I've not heard him actually say this. This is a quite lengthy article. We'll hold on to that one for just a little bit now. I don't know how much I believe that. It's especially coming from the Daily Wire. It's because they're usually very good about citing their sources too. That's why. Like, if they had the audio there, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. The Daily Wire did journalism that nobody else did. But, I mean, this is just somebody spitballing off of a supposed audio clip that they might have. Distribute. I want to see if they actually put it out there tomorrow. I'll be looking for that one. All right, what else do we have here? From the Daily Mail. 2 members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard want to assassinate Trump National Security Advisor, but the Biden admin is holding back on charges to push for a nuclear deal. From Caitlin Corral, U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. A pair of Iranians in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard's covert action, Quds Force, have been plotting an assassination against Trump-era National Security Advisor John Bolton, but the Biden admin is not acting on that intelligence because it doesn't want to foil nuclear deal negotiations. Intelligence community personnel, prosecutors, and FBI agents are upset that there have been no indictments against the 2 men or Quds Forces and Iranian leaders, a Justice Department official with knowledge of the investigation told the Washington Examiner. The outlet said that while it's withholding certain information for national security reasons, the source was very specific and descriptive in the intelligence supporting the plot, including significant Revolutionary Guard reconnaissance activity and attempts to recruit an assassin in the U.S. President Biden is hoping to resume the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Iran nuclear accord, after former President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the agreement and Iran in turn suspended its compliance and began work on developing nuclear weapons. A new nuclear deal with Iran is currently nearing completion from negotiations in Vienna, Austria. So, I have to say that I hope that John Bolton has a long and healthy life. I hope that everything happens well for him for the rest of his life, Susan. I hope that nothing bad happens to him. But I'm sorry, Susan, I can't censor myself this far off of this. I would not cry if this happened. I would not shed a single tear if this happened. This would be an act of war, don't get me wrong. And I'm sure that people would go over with patriotism and say that we need to go and wipe Iran off the face of the map, even though most of them couldn't find Iran on the map if they tried. Go wipe it off the face of the map. Hey, maybe they'll ally with Russia. But realistically, Bolton has been responsible for sending millions and millions, or at least thousands to be sure, of sons and daughters from poor families over into the desert to die. But I still wish him a long and happy life, and I hope that nothing bad happens to him. After he's gone, all bets are off. From the Blaze, Democrat forced to end campaign after just one day over disturbing tweets targeting Republicans, including Governor Kristi Noem. Oh, I can't wait to read some of these. Democrat Ryan Ryder announced last week that he was running for Congress. Just one day later, Ryan folded his campaign after a disturbing social media post surfaced. Ryder, an Air Force vet and lawyer, announced last Wednesday that he was running in South Dakota's at-large congressional district, which is currently held by Republican Rep. Dusty Johnson. However, just hours after his announcement, Ryder came under intense scrutiny for several highly disturbing tweets. In one tweet from November of 2021, Ryder said, "Thinking about making an animated video of me killing Rep. Dusty Johnson's family," and then saying it was just a joke. Yeah, that typically doesn't go over well, does it? In another tweet from the one-year anniversary of the January 6th Selfie Fest, Ryder told Johnson, "It's too bad that the Trump rioters that you continue to support didn't get you..." How? What? "It's too bad the Trump rioters that you continued to support didn't get you that day." Oh, okay. Now I get what he's saying. In another tweet from July 2021, Ryder joked, apparently, about masturbating to a picture of South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. After the tweets were dredged up, Ryder emphasized that most were jokes and that context is key for properly understanding them. Yeah, but see, the problem with that is you don't extend that to other people who are just joking. Now, I'm going to give you just a little bit of freedom of speech advice off of this. While I do think that it's disturbing that he talked about the killing of various government officials, I think that's bad, I think that's wrong, and he shouldn't have done that. With that being said, I do understand that there's joking out there. I think it's in bad taste, but I don't think he should be censored over that or denied the ability to seek government office over it. I think he should be able to be pounded in the fucking ass on the polls because he thought that he could get away with this, because he's a liberal elite. I think that he should be able to go up and actually run for the office, get his ass fucking blasted while he's running for office, and then have to turn around and go back home to his home district in shame. But again, they don't extend the same courtesy to people on the other side who are also, quote, just making a joke. And that's the reason that I'm glad that he did get ass blasted, and he did get censored off of that, because this person wouldn't extend the same courtesy to everybody else, to anybody else on the other side. He'd be calling for them to be banned. He'd be calling them for them to be disallowed from any polite society if they would even think about making a joke like this about somebody on the other side. So, there you go. Fuck you. Sleep in the bed that you made. You prick. But really, realistically, I don't really give a fuck about what it is that he had to say. From the Daily Wire, Florida's LGBTQ bill is being widely misrepresented. Here are the facts. Nowhere in the legislation is the word gay mentioned. From Mary Margaret Olahan. And we talked about this last night as well. I'm sure that none of the students that went out and protested ever read this bill. They have no idea what the hell is going on with it, but they need to come out and protest because reasons. Florida's HB 1557 has drawn heavy fire from LGBTQ advocates, media, and Democrats. News outlets like CNN call HB 1557 the Don't Say Gay bill in copy, and critics of the legislation accuse Republicans of endangering LGBTQ youth by outing them to their parents or preventing them from learning about their sexuality. Ron DeSantis and his team have repeatedly pushed back on the framing. As recently as Monday, the governor tore into a reporter for misrepresenting the bill during his press briefing. Critics call it the Don't Say Gay bill, said the reporter, to which DeSantis replied, Does it say in that bill? I'm asking you to tell me what is in the bill because you're pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say. It bans the classroom instruction on sexual identity and gender orientation, said the reporter. For who? Pressed the governor. For grades pre-K through 3, so 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and the idea that you would be honest about that to tell people what it actually says. It's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. Which I will push back on that a little bit and say that it does not actually give a grade level in the bill. That should have been amended. The bill is written in response to an influx of gender ideology and sexual orientation content in the classrooms across the nation exposed by conservative news outlets and grassroots organizations like the Parents Defending Education. Critics have most notably taken issue with the bill's statement that the classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that's not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Students in kindergarten are typically 5 years old, while third graders are generally 8 or 9 years old. According to the CDC, one child can usually follow rules or take turns playing games with other children by 5. That 5-year-old may sing, dance, or do simple chores like matching socks or clearing the table. The child may tell a story that he or she heard, answer simple questions, maintain a simple conversation, count to 10, use words like yesterday, tomorrow, morning, or night, and hop on one foot. Well, that was about the time I started in chapter books, but I realized that I'm atypical in that manner. Nowhere in the legislation is the word gay mentioned throughout, though the word parent is mentioned 32 times, and the word parental is mentioned 7 times. The legislation heavily focuses on parental notification and parental awareness of what children are being taught or exposed to in school. So, and we've read the bill front to back. I think it's up to 7 pages now. It looks like they did do some amendments on it. It was 4 pages when we read it before, so that's what it's at right now. So I'd be interested to see off this. Fortunately, we're up on the clock and we're not going to be able to get to this today, but I'd be interested to see what's actually in this bill now, what they've changed into this, and maybe if they did add an actual grade level into the bill. So we'll see what happens off of that. But yeah, I mean, it is being wildly misrepresented. They are absolutely correct. Let's listen to what DeSantis has to say.
Does it say that in the bill? Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill because you are pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say.
Well, it says it bans classroom instruction on sexual identity and gender orientation.
For who? For grades pre-K through 3. So 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And the idea that you wouldn't be honest about that and tell people what it actually says, it's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. And so we disabuse you of those narratives. And we're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
Amen. And again, that should be a thing by the parents. And, you know, KTZed and I have different opinions as to how sexual identity issues should be handled in schools. I do think that, again, when you're talking about abstract ideas and social issues, because I had a social problems class when I was a senior in high school, and we talked. If we had that today, and I'm guessing that my teacher at the time, who I almost said his name, I'll say his first name. I'm guessing that if Barry is still teaching that class, they're probably talking about some of this stuff in the class at senior year, at 17 and 18 years old. They're probably talking about the impact of. They're not talking about this goes there and this is why you should enjoy it, but they're talking about how some of this agenda is affecting where this is. And I'm sure that the super liberals out there are in there, and I know whose kids they are probably coming in and saying that this is horrifying and stuff like that, or we need to do everything we can to support this community. I'm sure that that's some of the conversation that's going on with this, but to have the discussion on the outside of how this goes, again, I don't agree with the idea of telling you what the mechanics are of it, other than if you put this there, then you might get a baby. But other than that, the mechanics, that's a conversation for mom and dad to have with a kid. Or a church leader as well, if they want to get that person involved. I don't necessarily think that they should, but that's one to be off of there as well. Or KTZed, who thinks that there should never be any discussion of any of this anywhere near a school. We differ on that, but we do agree on the same point that going up through 7th to 8th grade is probably too young to be talking about this kind of thing. The bill only says through 3rd grade, but I think that it should be extended to like 7th or 8th grade. But regardless, this is being wildly misrepresented in the media, and we've talked about it extensively. More Florida news. Florida Surgeon General recommends against COVID vaccination for healthy children. From David K. Lee and Nicole Duarte. Florida Surgeon General on Monday said healthy children should not get COVID-19 vaccines. In a roundtable featuring Ron DeSantis and State Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo announced that the Florida Department of Health is going to be the first state to officially recommend against the pinko-pox jab for healthy children. The reasons for that guidance, DeSantis said, Ladapo said, have to do with lingering questions about the vaccine's potential health risks for young people. In rare cases, mRNA vaccines have been linked to myocarditis and inflammation of the heart muscle among young men and teenage boys. However, neither Ladapo nor DeSantis offered details about what qualifies a child as healthy, nor the specific age group in which they were referring. Well, they should consult with their doctors first. Because that person is a professional and usually has known the child since birth and can tell you what's healthy and what's not. The CDC has been monitoring reports of myocarditis and found that cases of the condition have rarely been reported, especially in adolescents and young adult males within several days after vaccination. A study published in the Journal of American Medical Association in January suggests that even among the group with the most reports of myocarditis, males ages 16 to 17, the rate was about 106 out of a million. Those who have reported myocarditis have generally responded well to medicine and rest and felt better, the CDC said. Dr. Marissa Levine, director of the Center for Leadership and Public Health Practice at the University of South Florida, and the small risks presented by myocarditis are far outweighed by the proven benefits of the vaccines. What we saw here was a small group of people talking about some specific data that they may have, but not a comprehensive view of what's going on, Levine said of DeSantis' roundtable, which also included several doctors and researchers. And Dr. Tina Carroll Scott, medical director at South Miami Children's Clinic, called the new state directive irresponsible and incorrect. And I'm going to refer back to the way that I always go with this. Now, if the Surgeon General of Florida is recommending against getting the vaccines for healthy children, that's still going to be on the parent to decide what is best for the child, and the doctor who is going to be administering the shot. But for the most part, if you want the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't, go watch The Price is Right instead. That has been the stance that I've always had against this. I have personally chosen not to get it, but I would not stop anybody from getting it. And in fact, if somebody else wants to go get it and they don't have a ride, as I've always said, you call your old boy J. Edgar and he will bring you out to your vaccination appointment and make sure that you can get the vaccine that you want if you want it that badly. I'll either call you an Uber if I'm too far away. I'll pay for the Uber myself. I'll hail you a cab. I'll get you on a bus. I'll find some way to get you to your appointment on my dime. Or if you're here, if you're local, I'll take you over there myself. If you want it that badly, I will not discourage anybody from getting it if they want it. But since I don't want it, you don't get to encourage me to go and get it. So, that's what they say off of that. Let's grab one from The Hill. Group trying to disbar lawyers who worked on Trump's post-election lawsuit. From Monique Beals. A dark money group with connections to the Democrat Party who's reportedly looking to disbar and discredit more than 100 lawyers who worked on former President Trump's post-election lawsuits. The 65 Project, named after the 65 lawsuits filed to overturn the 2020 election results, has already filed 10 ethics complaints and will air advertisements on contentious states as part of the plan, which was first reported by Axios. On its website, the group notes that judges appointed by both parties found Trump's election fraud filings bogus and riddled with false statements following the election. Yeah, it'd be nice if we got a hearing about that and actually got some of that judged instead of just tossed out without standing. But success in the courtroom was not the only objective. The group writes, instead the lawyers bringing these claims knew that they were a key component of a larger effort to discredit the 2020 presidential election and all future elections in which their preferred candidate lost. Oh, you mean like yelling about Russian collusion, Russian invasion, Russian cheating for 5 years during the 2016 election. And already saying that voting machines could have problems all the way still back in 2021 about the upcoming 2022 midterms. Specifically, the group is set to spend millions on the effort to target 111 attorneys in 26 states, all of whom were involved in pushes to challenge or reverse the 2020 election results. States targeted for advertisements include Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. There has been no evidence of widespread fraud, safest and most secure election in history. In the 2020 election, results that lawyers attempted to overturn. However, the false narrative pushed by Trump and his allies is expected to play a central role in the 2024 midterms, 2022 midterms, by the way, as a number of GOP-led states have revised their voting laws in response to the so-called big lie, honk honk. Former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle and Paul Rosenzweig, who served as former senior counsel for Ken Starr's Whitewater investigation and was part of the former President W's Department of Homeland Security, are advisory board members for the group. Well, look. Number one, I think this should be done on a case-by-case basis. Do I think all 111 attorneys should be disbarred? No. There should be a review, but there should always be a review of lawyers because they're slimy. They're shitty. That's why I hired mine. Because she sucks. She's slimy. She's one of the most disingenuous and dishonest people that I know. And I hope to God I'm never sitting on the other side of the table from her. Ever. I hired her because I wanted her to be on my side. With those specific talents. So all attorneys should be checked by the ethics board periodically. These ones too. Do I think all of them should stay on the bar? Probably not. I mean, I saw what happened with Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Those people were fucking nuts. And yes, those two probably should be disbarred. But as far as the rest of this goes, no, this is just another sour grapes thing. And something to come back out and do. This is not about getting these lawyers disbarred either, by the way. This is about making campaign ads. Because, you know what? Now you're going to hear this on the radio, you're going to see this on the TV. It's going to be fresh in your memory. Oh, well, Republicans tried to overturn the 2020 election. And I bet you they're going to be mentioning January 6th as well. I haven't heard or seen any of these advertisements yet because I don't watch network TV and I so rarely listen to terrestrial radio. But I'd be willing to bet that somewhere along this we're going to hear, oh, well, these lawyers are exactly the same as January 6th and they should be disbarred immediately. Alright. And the last one, we'll actually get through everything, then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. The Supreme Court declines to revive the Bill Cosby prosecution. From Ariana DeVoe in Chandela's Duster. The Supreme Court left in place Monday an opinion by Pennsylvania's highest court that overturned comedian Bill Cosby's sexual assault conviction, rejecting a bid from Pennsylvania prosecutors to refute the decision. Cosby was convicted of aggravated indecent assault in 2018 for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand in his Pennsylvania home in 2004. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in a state prison. He was released in June after the Supreme Court overturned his conviction, on grounds that his due process rights had been violated. The Pennsylvania State Supreme Court justices said in their opinion that a former Montgomery County District Attorney's decision to not prosecute Cosby in 2005 in return for his deposition in a civil case was ultimately used against him in the trial. In a statement on behalf of Cosby and his family, publicist Andrew Wyatt praised the justices for following the rules of law and protecting the constitutional rights of all American citizens. Mr. Cosby's constitutional rights were a reprehensible bait and switch by Kevin Steele, Judge Steve T. O'Neill, and their cohorts, Wyatt said. It was truly a victory for Mr. Cosby, but it shows that cheating will never get you far in life and that corruption that lies within Montgomery County District Attorney's Office has been brought to the center stage of the world. Look, there is a level of corruption in all DA's offices. That's why you see a lot of the people in bigger business that are using government to crush their smaller competitors, especially, able to get away with so much of some of the things that they do. There's a lot of corruption in DA's offices. That's not a new thing. But no man shall be held to answer for the same crime and be put in jeopardy of life or limb twice. Double jeopardy applies. They can't go back and retry this. You lost. It's over. As far as what Cosby did, I have no opinion on that. I really don't. I've seen enough evidence to both sides to say that he's absolutely guilty and to say that they just tried to railroad him because he was famous and they wanted a bunch of money off of him. I don't know. And I'm going to tell you right now that I don't know. I've seen enough evidence that could take this both directions. Where does it go? I can't tell you, but you're not going to go back and put somebody in jeopardy of life or limb twice for the same crime in this country. We have laws and rules against that. Because, for the most part, of people like Steve T. O'Neill and Kevin Steele. So I'm glad, I really am, that you can take somebody this high profile and get your fucking cock slapped about it to prevent you from doing this to somebody like you or me. Alright, and with that, we're out of news. We actually got through everything today. I know we ran a little bit late, but the last thing that we're going to do, because it is Tuesday, is Twitter trending. I almost did something I'm thankful for. But no, we're going to do Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. So let's look at what's on the Explore tab for the day. Starting with number one trend, International Women's Day. I thought it was International Women's Month. International Women's Day, Women's Month, Women's Year. I don't know when they're going to start putting this, but I mean, we go straight from Black History Month to Women's History Month. And now Women's Day, which, again, if you want to celebrate it, I'm not going to stop you. I don't celebrate it, and I'm not going to celebrate it. But if you want to, that's cool. We have the freedom to do that. We have the freedom of religion. And if you want to religiously worship the state for giving the 19th, that's on you. Just don't ask me to participate. As is the case in most of the things that I come up with. Number 2, happy birthday, Suga. There's K-pop stuff here. Army celebrates BTS member Suga's birthday on March 9th. And it's just trending with Halsey, which I don't know why. I don't know why she's involved in this. I know who she is, because she had one song that I actually really liked. There's actually, I'm not going to lie, there are a couple of hers that I like. It's weird. I'm almost 40 and I'm starting to appreciate pop. Am I getting old? But all the birthday wishes out there. Again, I don't know why Halsey is, but... And I don't know anything about this K-pop thing. Except for the fact that the majority of people who listen to it can't understand what they're saying because they don't speak Korean. But that's what we see off of that. Tuesday Vibe, Tuesday Motivations will be skipped. Westbrook. Lakers fans sound off on Russell Westbrook after the point guard finished with 17 points, shooting 5-14 from the field and 0-2 from deep in LA's loss to San Antonio. So I don't know much about this either because I don't really watch basketball. I don't watch a lot of sports right now, but I especially don't do basketball. Lakers star Russell Westbrook says he's done with fans calling him Westbrick. Let me dial that back just a little bit. That seems loud. Wish I could catch that little option right between. There we go. The article was written without an ounce of sarcasm, maybe a new favorite article of all time. Russell Westbrook talking about how the nickname Westbrick is ruining not only his legacy, but his kids' legacy. That's probably true, because they're probably saying the same thing in the playgrounds right now. Westbrick, Westbrick. Kids suck sometimes. But it teaches people to be stronger than themselves. NBA fans after Russ told them not to call him Westbrick. That's a good one. All right. Next one. Wordle 262X. People try to guess today's 5-letter word in 6 tries or fewer in Brain Teaser Wordle. No idea. Still never tried to play it. I did find it. I could play it if I wanted to, but I've never tried. My streak, it's broken. That person didn't make it. Yeah, apparently it's taken the world by storm. I thought for sure that it would have at least a small clue to get you started as to what word to use. But yeah, apparently it's just start throwing random 5-letter words in there and see if you can find what the right letter is in 6 tries, or what the right word is in 6 tries or less. Apparently. But people take this thing serious. Like, major serious. Alright. And I think we get one more. Yep, one more trend. Mike Gesicki. So this is on football players. Dolphins have placed the franchise tag on tight end Mike Gesicki per league source. Will Mike Gesicki get franchise tagged before the deadline? What day? I'm guessing that's supposed to be what say you. So again, I have not watched football in a couple seasons. I don't really know what's going on with this. I know that the big talk right now is whether or not they're going to throw another contract at Aaron Rodgers and if he's going to accept it, because apparently right now, as of right now, he's in free agency. So I don't know. I really don't. It would be nice if when I came back to football, Green Bay had another great quarterback like Favre and Rodgers. But I don't know. I don't know enough about the league anymore right now to be able to weigh in on that. I've stepped away from it for long enough that I have no idea. And, well, that's just that. All right. And with that, we're out of here for the day. We're done. Where's the outro music? A little bit longer than I should have. I actually should have been out of here probably about 10 minutes ago, but it is what it is. And now we got to go hurry and grab something to eat and get out to work. So with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody for coming by, chatting with us in the live chat, hanging out with us. I know I don't read the live chat during the show, but I still am paying attention to what you guys have to say. So make sure you guys put all of your spicy comments in there, because I do read everything after the fact. I do see what it is that you guys are saying, and you guys do bring up some good and interesting articles and stuff for me to explore too. So keep chatting and save yourselves, or don't save yourselves for Friday. Make sure you've got stuff in there as well, because we do check in the live chat on Saturday, and we also come back and thank everybody who chatted throughout the week. I do my homework on Thursday and get all your names written down from the records and the logs that are either in YouTube or in Restream itself, so come back and hang out with that. And again, make sure you guys chat. Otherwise, come back here, join me tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. We'll be talking more news headlines, probably more Ukrainian stuff, unless a nuke drops somewhere in Chicago or somewhere in Wisconsin. We'll be back here tomorrow for more Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.